how do you think the end of this might have been different had you had not dealt with the circumstances you dealt with? If you're in the edit houses you typically would have been in, you know what I'm saying? Like, the timeline would have been similar, but the situation might it have impacted the way the work was ultimately finished?
I don't think that the storyline was mapped out. So everything with the Phil's coffee can ceremony and all of that was mapped out. I knew 2 years ago that quote from Michael that plays at the beginning of the first episode was going to play again at the end of the last episode, but you have way more context, and it turns out that actually the Bulls are respected, like the Celtics and the Lakers and the Sixers. So the basic structure of the episode stayed the same. And that, again, is a testament to our editors and our producers. Everyone was on the same page.
I've heard things like Vince Gilligan talking about Breaking Bad, where you have an end and then you work backwards. Is that something like? I mean, I don't know that it's the same for all filmmakers. I'm just curious if that's sort of what was in play here.
There's certain tent poles I've never done 10 episodes like this before, so this is all new to me. But I knew, like, when you see the footage when I saw the footage of Michael collapsing after the '96 finals. And heard the audio for the first time. It was so powerful and impactful.
I said that on the show. I had seen it, but I'd never heard it. I'm sorry to jump you, but when I heard it, it was so powerful because I'd never heard it.
Yeah, so that's something that you say, all right, we're going to build to that.
Okay.
We always knew that was going to be at the end of episode 8. And then the moment where Michael gets emotional at the end of 7, that was always going to be there. So you have these moments that you know you're going to build to, and you build to them. So luckily we had that. I should tweet it out tomorrow. There's this huge corkboard in my office that was our North Star. Every day we would come in and look at that thing and switch around the cards. But basically that was, so the first thing I did when I knew the shutdown was coming was go into the office. There was nobody there at this point because it was just about like illegal to be there. And I took pictures of that whole thing so I could recreate it back in my apartment here and keep on working that way.
You should tweet it out, because I think people that have been so ravenously consuming this would love to know the creative process. Now, you mentioned 7. That's the one for me, and I wrote to it last week on the show. Like, I'm sitting there, and I say out loud to nobody when he gets done, I just said, damn. I mean, it was so heavy. Well, I've sat down across from people for many, many years and talked to them. You know when you get something like that. When he says to you, winning has a price, leadership has a price, and he finishes by saying, you don't want to play that way, don't play that way, and break. As the guy sitting across from him, you get that moment. What do you remember feeling and thinking as that happened?
I was stunned because it was so early in the process. It wasn't that normally if you know that you're about to discuss something that's emotional, there's a way that you build to it, and oftentimes the subject knows chronologically that's where we're going.
Sure.
This one was out of nowhere. And what followed was, we cut that answer down, but that was minutes long that he was talking. And you could hear a pin drop in the end, and he said break. And, when anyone says break, you give them that respect. When Michael Jordan says break, it's a capital B.
Make it a full.
I got up.
Take a 20, make it a full.
I came out, and I remember just looking at my producers and looking at the camera crew, and all of us were just kind of like, it goes unsaid, but we raised our eyebrows like, this is something more. We're not doing Michael Jordan, the basketball player here. This is Michael Jordan, the human being that we're talking to.
I'm not a documentarian. I am a consumer, and I love everything about this. For those that have said because Jordan's involved in it, that changes how they view the end result, what would be your reaction to that?
My reaction would be show me the aspect of this documentary where we had to soft pedal anything. Show me where we avoided something that we should have gone into. That is a documentary about the Bulls dynasty through the prism of the 97-98 season starring Michael Jordan.
Right.
Did we get into the gambling? Yes. Did we get into his dad's death? Yes. Did we get into the conspiracy theories surrounding his leaving for baseball and surrounding whether or not he was responsible for his dad's death? Yes. Did we get into how tough he is and his teammates? Yes. Did they ever push back on us once and say, you cannot use this clip, you can't use that quote, you can't use this, you can't ask that? No, never once. So people are entitled to their opinion, but I'm very proud of what we did.
Just to be clear, I'm on your side. I'm curious when I hear those that do what you do, that say this is how they see it. I do wonder this: how do you reconcile a guy who's a ready-made villain that Krause is, because he's the one that wants to get rid of it, and he's the punchline, and he's crumbs, and he's the guy we make fun of dancing, and he's passed away. So he's not here to say something in 2018, 19, 20, whenever, to answer for whatever maybe missteps he felt he made then. Did you struggle with that?
Yeah, and there's not much I can do except
Obviously
to mine all the footage that we had of him. And if there is one person that we could have spoken to for this that we didn't, it's Jerry Krause, because I wanted to personalize him. The way that it's been construed has surprised me, because I've read or heard people say that we cast him as the villain deliberately. I wanted to display as much as possible the type of bullying and abuse that he was enduring in those early episodes in order to sympathize with him. So the intention was there, but the way that it was construed was a little bit different. You know, Jerry made decisions that resulted in the downfall of this dynasty. That's not to say that other people didn't behave in ways that they probably regret too. But if Jerry doesn't go to Phil and say, you could go 82-0, you're leaving no matter what, then that leaves the door open for Jerry Reinsdorf to come in at the end of the season and say, do you want to stay for another year? And maybe Phil says, you know what, okay. But I think that it was untenable at that point. But I do regret anyone thinking that we deliberately were certainly not mocking Jerry Krause. And because I've said to anyone who will listen to me, clearly Michael is the alpha and the omega of that dynasty. Nothing happens without him. But he was the only piece in place when Jerry Krause came in there. Jerry Krause is the one who drafted Grant and Pippen. Jerry Krause is the one who had the guts to trade Oakley for Cartwright. Jerry Krause is the one who put the Steve Kerrs and the John Paxsons and the Tony Kukocs and the Dennis Rodmans in a place to help the way that they helped. Mm-hmm. So I have enormous respect for him, and I hope the viewers do too.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.